Rhiannon, let's start with your 2015 piece, Like a Singing Bird, which you wrote for the BBC as part of their International Women's Day celebrations. Could you just give us a bit of background about the piece?
Well, it's interesting looking back at a piece that I wrote, 6 years ago now. It was commissioned for International Women's Day by BBC Radio 3, and it was premiered on The Choir by Dame Sarah Connolly and the Girls' Choir of St Catherine's, Cambridge. It was the first major commission I had as a professional composer that really sort of made me understand from my own perspective that writing choral music was going to be something that I really enjoyed and something that I really wanted to make a part of my career moving forward. Christina Rossetti, in many ways, is almost an obvious choice in the sense that her words for me are incredibly soulful. They really strike a chord. And one of the things that I sort of looked at when I was picking this particular poem is that there's the idea of something coming. So in one of the refrains is, "My love is come to me, and the birthday of my life has come."
I know you've been very busy over the last 6 years, but maybe we can jump forwards now to talk about Our Burning World.
To tie Like a Singing Bird in with the most recent publication, which is in progress at the moment with Stainer, which is Our Burning World, there's actually quite a neat link here, which is that the poetry that I'm using, which was a specially commissioned text for Our Burning World, was from Reverend Malcolm Guite, who up until last year was at Girton, as he was the main chaplain. And I recall very fondly a lot of his poetry readings. This premiered actually just before lockdown last year in February 2020. And the purpose of this commission, which was commissioned by the Choir of St Michael's, Cornhill, with which I've been very lucky over the past, I think it's 3 years now, to be in their composer in residence. Something that both Jonathan Rennett, the musical director, and Reverend Charlie Scrine, who up until March this year has been the Reverend there, they really wanted to address the issue as to how the church deals with the environmental crisis and how we can look to parts of the scripture to talk about this issue and all this sort of thing. The Anthem itself was an incredibly evocative and intense process to write because the words are very heart-wrenching. It's addressed as if, Earth is speaking to us and there's this intense sense of terror. But what I think is really nice, again, to tie it in with the idea of hope from Like a Singing Bird, is that both the anthem and the text end with a note of hopefulness.
So the theme of this year's International Women's Day is Choose to Challenge. What would you say have been your biggest challenges as a composer and as a musician, and how is it that you've overcome these?
I never really thought actively about the whole issue of female composers until I really became a professional composer as I am today. The fact that it wasn't being raised at all is something we should think about. I always wanted to do it, and nobody sort of, as a youngster, I had a lot of incredibly supportive, often male teachers who were incredibly they saw my enthusiasm and they really helped to bring me on in their own ways. But I certainly think the lack of female mentors is something that I've noticed now, since I am now acting as one to other female students. So in terms of challenges, I would say that it's actually interesting to think about how a lot of my career has been me being the only woman in a room. And how I sort of normalised that for a while. But subsequently I'm thinking, is it really right that I normalise that? Not really. Now, this is of course not to say that there isn't a whole abundance of female composers, because fortunately there is. In fact, I'd say that in the last 6 years I've met more female composers than prior to that.
So is this something that you'd address with your own students?
I do want to make it apparent that, the problems are there, in the sense that they may have to face issues of discrimination, even if it's not blatant. For example, it might be simply that, they enter a competition and all of the winners are male, and there's almost like a silence as to why that is. I do think it's important for young people to understand the problems, so that they can help to address them. But I also believe that they shouldn't be so concerned about them that it actually impedes their own understanding of themselves or their confidence. Hopefully, what I'm trying to instill within the students is that they should have full confidence in themselves, regardless of who they are, regardless of their background, gender, anything. It's a very important factor for me to be able to guide them